Hi everyone, this is Singh Jaini here from the Digital Fifth, and this session is specifically focused on SoftPoS. So we'll talk a lot about what's happening in SoftPoS, and we have industry stalwarts here, uh, Dilip, Sanjeev, and Akash all there. So they will guide us on what it is. So you don't need to bear with me. I'll not be talking too much. It's the experts out there who will actually guide us on what's happening. We have the network head. We have the banker who drives acquisition in the market, and Akash is there from the technology and platform perspective, right? So we have the right guys in the room. So Aditya, you don't need to bear with me at all. Quick one, I think just for those who don't know me and my organization, we run the Digital Fifth, which is purely focused on consulting, partnership, training, and hiring, but all for fintech domain. Maybe we are the largest guys, obviously in India, but of course within Asia also maybe the largest fintech consulting firm. Uh, Maybe a quick 30 seconds from your side, Akash, on Cashfree, and then we'll proceed. Over to you, Akash.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Akash. I'm founder of Cashfree Payments. So today we are one of the largest payments platform in India, and we help all the online companies with their payment collection and payment dispersal requirement. So you can use Cashfree to collect payment from your customer, disperse payments to your vendor customers. And also we have a bunch of verification tools that you can use as part of your, part of your multiple flows. Right, so we process more than 30 billion transactions on an annual basis, 30 billion worth of transactions on an annual basis. And in terms of volume, process up to 1 billion transactions on an annualized basis. So we have more than 1 lakh merchants on the platform today, and we have been doing pretty well for last, like 3-4 years.
Phenomenal. And all we thought that payments cannot be sort of innovated further, and you're doing it. So super stuff. In this particular session, we are also launching our white paper on SoftPoS. Idea is that in India, very few people know what's exactly SoftPoS, and that also from a merchant ecosystem perspective, right? Merchants need to utilize this platform. It's literally I think in Dilip's presence, I'm just saying that maybe a UPI movement for the acquisition side, right? Somebody actually, everything is getting digitized and the cost of device is going down. So this particular activity, we'll learn more about it. But here in this document, we have gone deeper and deeper into the document itself. It's coming more as a white paper. My suggestion is that as we go forward, we'll share you the link of the document. It's full-fledged 50-page document to give you the perspective on how SoftPoS works, what are the challenges, what are the positive points, and why we believe that when our PM Modi says that digital will grow, I think this will be one of the biggest tools for growth as well. So this document has a lot of details around how it is, and both from the merchant perspective as well as from consumer perspective. So both the details are there in the document. And with this, we move towards the knowledge session itself. Here, obviously, we have Mr. Asbe, MD and CEO NPCI. I think everybody knows what Dilip and his team have done to the market. The market is booming because on the digital side because of what the great work they have done. We have Sanjeev. I think from the payments perspective, Axis Bank has been a leader, and getting his perspective is what we sort of thought that will be great for us. And Akash, Sinha, who is the CEO and co-founder of Cashfree Payment. So I think we have the right folks in the room to take it forward. As we go forward, maybe the first question to Dilip, to you is, maybe you can give your perspective on the acquisition side and how it can be dramatically improved in the market. So what is the potential of acquisition market, and how can it be improved in the current context? So maybe quick, you can guide us on that side, and then we'll move forward.
Thanks, Samir, and hi, Sanjeev and Akash. The way I look at the acquiring side market is definitely there is it's a long way to go to from a growth standpoint and maturity standpoint. And today, when we look at Indian customers, about 250 million customers are paying, while the actual opportunity is 3x, right? So what it means is the acquiring business, if you multiply the merchant growth, which is another 3x to 4x possible easily, right? What it means is, if you multiply both the growths, it's about 10x growth possible in the number of digital payment transactions that are going to be processed by India. And when we speak about 10x growth, it more or less the billion a day vision, what NPCI has. So when you look at that, there is a huge scope on the acquiring side. When you, I think there is some noise in the background.
Let me just mute.
Yeah. Thank you, Samir. The second part, the way I look at it, and very happy to be participating in the launch of SoftPoS. The way I strongly believe that the software will bring more value than the hardware, and I think moving towards the software driven approach, right, is will be rewarding to the entire ecosystem. And very similar approach we took it in the UPI as well. If you look at it, a few years back, and the results are visible. So I think the software-driven approach with the help of SoftPoS will really add a lot of value to the system. And let me explain in the presentation how it will add a lot of value. There are many initiatives by the ecosystem to grow the acceptance. Whether it's PIDF, which has been launched by the ecosystem with the guidance by RBI. I think we are at a very good position to grow the acceptance countrywide. And when you look at the new users which are participating back in the digital payments, those are coming in from tier 2, tier 3, and only metro is contributing back. Metro or metropolitan areas are contributing to those users. So I think very well timed SoftPoS launch and the evolution of the SoftPoS. But I think it has to evolve itself, right? It can't just be a single payment product, right? In that sense. But we'll talk about it during the discussion afterwards, Samir. Thank you.
Thank you, Dilip. Thank you. And maybe your perspective, Sanjeev, as a banker who has been driving in the market, what are the potential of acquisition and how I think it'll grow given that SoftPoS is already there?
Yeah, thanks, Samir. Good afternoon, and hi, Dilip. Hi, Akash. Good afternoon to everybody else who's listening in as well. See, quite interesting because, and we keep discussing that India obviously has reached a certain, whether you call it cusp, whether you call it inflection point, $3 trillion economy, close to 2,000 per capita dollar, and obviously from here onwards, the pace really accelerates. What has happened over the last 3-4 years on plastic, now with UPI, really is a significant mushrooming of digital payments. As you go around the country, undoubtedly, whether you're paying your taxi driver or rickshaw driver, or you're paying for tea at a really small store, etc., between cards and QR, payments have become significantly more digital. Okay. Now, what comes in the way is the fact that one, QR is fine. However, a lot of people do want to pay by card, and they have not necessarily moved to the app. They have not necessarily tokenized all of those aspects. However, a small retailer, any part of the country, but significantly, I'm really talking about outside the top 8, outside the top 20. How can he accept it at a very, very low cost and still very secure? I think SoftPoS really addresses these two boxes in a very significant way. I am also not going to pitch this as the only answer to further deepening of India's digital payments, but a significant answer to what can lead to the next wave of growth. So it's not a silver bullet. It's one of many, many bullets that India will need to fire on this path of deepening digital payments. Keep in mind, payments is an outcome of GDP growth. It also leads to GDP growth. So essentially, in that sense, it's a virtuous cycle. We've seen this over the last 3-4 years. It will continue to play out. That's the context in which we need to understand and appreciate this launch today, but also the fact that this is just one of many milestones that we'll have on the path of digital payments. That's my opening kind of context, Samir, and we'll take it from there.
No, perfect. In fact, we had Jan Dhan accounts everywhere, but no point to use, right? I think this change will dramatically, I mean, for example, in villages, we now see AAPS all over because the devices on a mobile works well with just that biometric device. I think this is what is going to happen in this case as well. So Akash, since you are driving and building this up, so maybe a quick pointer from your side before we go into deeper questions. And to all the participants, we'll share the link for downloading the white paper as well. So you can download and also you can ask questions on the chat box. I'll pick it up as we go forward and ask to our veterans here, the guys who know much more than me by any context. So Akash, over to you for your opening.
Yeah, I'm not a veteran, sorry.
No, I didn't mean age, man. Don't worry. Yeah, Akash, you're on mute. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you, Samir, again. Hi, everyone. See, Samir, I mean, for us, we are in the business of this payment solution for the last 7 years, right? We are very active in helping all the online businesses access, as many payment modes as possible, right? So today, if you go to any online website, you can access up to 120 payment modes, which is very seamless for all these merchants, right? And we are very big supporter of digital payment solution. We want to, really have digital payment seen everywhere, right? But once we start looking at the offline space, right, we feel offline space has a big friction in the name of hardware. Right, whenever we see hardware, one is not affordable by a very long list of SMB merchant. Right, cost starts from 12K, the basic version, right? It goes up to 40, 50K. Then there's a significant cost of distribution. Then there's a significant cost of maintenance it, and there's a significant cost of upgrading it. Right. So because of all these frictions, we don't see a lot of acceptance around this acquiring infrastructure, being distributed in an even way in the market. Right. It's true that UPI has disrupted digital payments in offline world in a big way. Right, we have done a really great job there, right? And we have more than 10 crore UPI installation in the market today. But still, there is a very large segment of merchants who want to accept money through credit modes, through EMI modes, through BNPL modes, through wallet modes. That is something we don't see in today's hardware capable of providing that in a very fast and efficient manner. Right? First, there is a very big barrier in terms of cost, distribution, maintenance, and then there is a barrier in terms of scalability of these solutions. Right, and the answer for all these problems is the software-led approach. Right, that's where we have a pretty good strength on. Right, we have done a good job in terms of payment gateway, payouts, all the collection dispersal product, and we see we can use the similar experience in making digital payments much more convenient, much more easy in the offline world too. Right, when a customer is walking into offline retail store, they should have similar kind of options what they have in the online space, right? So that their experience remains uniform. Second is in India also we still need to do a massive work in terms of digitizing the cash collection, right? Helping merchants create the entire collection trace, right? So that tomorrow they could be eligible for more lending products. Right, they can build things around loyalty products, right? And to enable all this, we have to start digitizing this collection, right? Which is not happening at a scale we want to happen at a lot of places, right? Tier 1, tier 2, the penetration of POS, the hardware POS is pretty high. But if you look at tier 3 to tier 6 cities, right, there are a lot of regions in India where the acceptance infrastructure is pretty weak, right? I mean, it's there, but it cannot accept all the modes. The second bigger problem we see, right? I mean, in tomorrow, right? A lot of these guys would want to support both cash in, cash out kind of product, right? Which is pretty hard for hardware to do, right? You can accept money, but you cannot, refund the money back to a customer in an easy way, right? So with the software approach, the number of options become more, right? You can go and target a lot of use cases, not just payments, right? I'm thinking beyond payments. You can also apply in transit. You can also use, reward fund redemption technologies, right? So it is just the opening of, a lot of doors, right? Not just one door. And that's where we see a lot of revolution in this offline space when it comes to digital payments. So that is the idea we are using. That's why we are pretty bullish on this market. And we want to be a bigger supporter here. We want to improve the ecosystem, right? It's not just about the product, it's more about how do we increase awareness in the ecosystem and have digital payment acceptance, going up in the market.
Okay, and I did not do the basics, right? Can you define what is SoftPoS? Because otherwise we'll talk about everything positive and all of that, but the participants are asking me a direct question, ye kya ho raha hai, right? So I think it's good to define what SoftPoS is and the context it can run, right?
Simplify it, right? Today, when you walk into a shop, right, when you have to transact using a card, you find a hardware machine presented in front of you. You either dip your card or you swap your card, and then you can pay using a card. Right, tomorrow, right? Tomorrow for any merchant, they can just download a SoftPoS app from provider like Cashfree or any other provider, and they can convert the existing Android phone to a POS device. Right, so you don't have to buy any hardware. You just install an app. As soon as you install it, right, your mobile becomes capable of accepting card transaction. As a customer, I'll walk in the store. I can just tap my card on the mobile phone, and payment will be completed. Right, it's very seamless. Like you don't have to worry about And best part, it's very scalable solution. Right, in a store you can have 10 POS machines now with the SoftPoS technology. And earlier, you could only have one POS in the entire store. Right? So it's a very simple app. It's a software-based solution. You install an app and you can convert any mobile into a POS device and you start accepting payment within minutes.
But max stripe ka kya hoga? How will it max stripe work, right?
See, today we see the chip and NFC is pretty ubiquitous in the market, right? I mean, the acceptance is pretty high. I think most of the cards we issued since 2016 or 2017 have NFC capability there. And RBI has also mandated, I think, chip card, a lot of new cards. So the acceptance is there in the market. I think it's very rare to just find a max chip unless the card is, anyway, card expired within, I think, 6 to 7 years, right?
No, I was more worried on the Jansan side, right? So there many of them will actually have max type. So basically, you can add the small dongle stuff, right? For the
Correct. So we are also working with small dongle through which you can dip the card inside the device and also can swipe it. So those are solution working on. The intent for us to give a 100% solution to the market instead of not giving. Otherwise, the purpose will not get fulfilled. Right, but the idea is reduce the cost of maintenance, reduce the cost of distribution, reduce the cost of security upgradation, right? And that's where we'll make it much more acceptable in the market.
Oh, perfect. So the question to you would be that now that it has come, how the market will evolve both on the card side as well as on the acquisition side, and how networks can accelerate it, right? Finally, the country is driven by the networks, not by banks directly, right? So how can networks accelerate the whole process?
So let me first correct that the country is driven by the banks and not by the networks, right? Today nobody knows what network you're running, but what card you have. So for example, Axis Bank, everybody would know Axis Bank as a much stronger brand than it's a customer facing brand, rightly so. So I don't see it as a problem as well. The point is, we at NPCI, right? We have been working on this very consciously in terms of how do we grow demand and supply both, and whether it's a demand from a demand standpoint, right? So most of the cards which are issued on our RuPay networks are NCMC compliant. Akash was talking about it, and I will be really happy to update that over 30 million cards which are issued in last few months are NCMC compliance, and I don't see NCMC and NFC compliant, right? So I would strongly believe that next 2 to 3 years time, approximately 300 million Indians who are doing our digital transactions, all of them will have a NFC compliant NCMC RuPay cards, right? That's a point number one. So the demand is well taken care of. From a supply standpoint, we have been working with a lot of providers to get the SoftPoS developed, right? Because see, technically, when you have the physical POS, right, it's very, very complex for a merchant to operate, right? You have to do the EOD, SOD, and there are cryptic buttons, menus to be driven, and very similar to the ATMs. And while ATM flow is fairly simple, so I think this software-driven story really enhances the merchant and customer both experience in that sense. The second story which I would like to add in here is, while there is a high amount of standardization on the card side, there is a huge need of localization from a need and India perspective, right? And when I say the localization, there is a huge opportunity for this all SoftPoS to become for example, a BBPS access points, right? Bharat BPay access points, right? Because today BBPS gets such a huge opportunity back to the ecosystem. Why wouldn't we have enablement of while you collect the payments, also fulfillment of the service, right? And that service could be the biller, the service could be the DTH or any other value-added service you're talking about, right? So from our perspective, we are working with all the fintech startups in the ecosystem who are trying to work on the software side, POS, to kind of bring in the both demand and supply together, and also create a huge differentiation in terms of adding up the local clearing houses what we have built over the years, so that it increases the traffic, it increases the value proposition to the merchant in that sense.
Fantastic. And Sanjeev, I think as an acquirer, I think if you look at the market boomed after that demonetization, and the country changed, but number of points are still 5.6 million, right? That's what the RBI data is. Now, how will it grow post this scenario where almost every mobile can be a POS device? And also, what kind of innovation can happen? So, what is your visualization, and what you think is ahead of the market for us? So, for somebody innovate as well on top, right?
Yes, Samir. So broadly, 5.6 million merchants are covered today. Our estimate is the total population is close to 5 crore. So we're roughly hitting the 10% mark. So roughly, let's say it's an iceberg. Obviously, we're not talking about the size of the iceberg. We're just saying in terms of number of because the larger merchants are obviously all terminalized. Second point is, while this deepening has to happen, essentially 4 or 5 things an acquiring device has to have, right? One, it should just work. Whether it is a card dev, whether it is a tap and pay or whatever, etc., it has to work. It has to be secure. 3, it has to be low cost, which decides to a large extent whether the merchant accepts it or not. 4th, if the signal that it transmits the message on is to the extent 4G rather than 2G, it's better serviced all over the country right now, because 2G services, there are certain pockets of the country where it is not necessarily as good as some of the other pockets of the country. If you look at it, SoftPoS actually meets all these requirements. Is it safe? Yes, it is safe. Is it? Does it work? Yeah, it obviously works. It's built on smartphone, which actually means the message is then transmitted on 4G, which means you won't have a problem in parts of Northeast, there are various pockets of the country, parts of the country where there are very patchy 2G signals. I think the third part is the crux of it. The fact that it is low cost, because the MDR is exactly the MDR that you have on a credit card and debit card. And to the extent some of the merchants are smaller, obviously the MDR can be even lower because they enjoy a differential MDR structure, the merchant discount rate structure. Significant point: a terminal today costs close to 500 to 600 rupees a month. Okay, it could be 300 as well. I'm talking about the terminals you can carry around. Obviously, there are phone line terminals which are not popular in India, which are free, but nobody increasingly is taking those. So really what is being put out in the market are those terminals you can carry on, GPRS as we call it. These costs upwards from 200, 300 or really 500, 600. If you take it to a merchant who's got a turnover of, let's say, a lakh a month, so 70,000 a month, so on, so forth, etc., and then you have a margin on that, and this is then becoming a very significant cost out. Does he already have a smartphone? Yes, he has. It could be the owner. It could also be shop boys in his shop. All of them have smartphones. Between that smartphone being NFC enabled, or just what Akash was referring to, having an additional device which can accept, it costs as low as 1,000 rupees, right? And you can then do a capex, or we can invest in all of that stuff. It means you can do transactions which are on the smartphone through tap, or you can actually do what is called pen on glass, which means the smartphone is used to initiate, and then you can put the pin on the smartphone. This is very, very low cost, which takes out one large friction factor, which is the cost of the hardware, or virtually there is no hardware. If at all the dongle is there, that's a bit of hardware, but essentially it takes cost out. In India, we have seen once you take cost out, acceptance factor can be really high. That's the context. Now, will it meet success? All of those things will happen as rubber meets the road. But fact is, this sounds like a fairly good proportion because it's meeting virtually all of what we call the normal acid test for an acquiring device. Rest, obviously, we will see as I said, once reality of the market hits in. Yeah, so that's my context. This could be a large part, again, not a silver bullet, but large part of deepening from the 5.6 million to what we estimate is the potential of the country, which is roughly around 5 crore.
And that would also mean that, Sanjeev, from a customer perspective, he has more options, right? So this is the all merchant view, right? How about the customer view? Any thoughts how customer life will change? Because it's very irritating when you go somewhere. He will take UPI, but nothing else he will take, right? The Panwala here will never take anything other than UPI in the country, right? So any thoughts on how that will also change from a customer perspective?
Yeah, so we have to understand, see, everybody doesn't necessarily download the app, right, to be able to scan and all of that stuff. What it does is, the Panwala doesn't have a problem accepting digital payments. That is what UPI and QR has already shown us. He has no problem. On the margin, we can argue whether that MDR makes a difference or doesn't make a difference, so on and so forth, etc. But I don't think that's a huge friction factor. Fact is, he doesn't want to pay 500 rupees for the device every month, by the way. It's not a one-time, it's a per month. Once it is on a smartphone, whether tap or the dongle, I think that friction is significantly answered. Customer is better off because he doesn't have to download any app, etc. And anyway, it's an extra choice. We are not saying you have to do this or that. You have this, it works. If you don't want to download the app or don't want to do the transaction for that occasion on the QR, you can give your card and the card goes through. Customer gets more option. Merchant sees low friction. Conceptually, I'm saying it's meeting what we believe is what the market requires. Rest, obviously, market will tell us.
No, I agree. So maybe moving on to Akash from your side, I think you are moving from PG business to a POS business, right? Which is the online to offline as well. And maybe there's a space for an omni-channel platform as well, right? So what made you move in this direction, and maybe some more illustration of the benefits it will accrue? And one pointer, will it also become like a SDK kind of framework where in the framework itself, the way you have in-app kind of framework coming up. So maybe more ideas, more thoughts on why you did it and what is the benefit and how omnichannel will work, right?
See, first, when you look from technology perspective, PG and offline payments work in a very similar way, right? Today, all of this cloud-enabled POS machine, which merchants normally use, right? The backend is largely similar. In PG, it's card not present transaction. In POS, it's card present transaction. But in the backend, you use similar kind of payment switches, and you follow the similar settlement logic, refund logic, dispute logic. Everything is very identical. And secondly, we as a company are very big supporter of digital payments, right? And we wanted to do something which can be scaled up, right? I think what Sanjeev has mentioned, if you have to scale the number of POS terminals from 5.6 million to say 50 million, that's pretty hard to do through something which is not scalable, right? You cannot build so many hardware devices. You cannot distribute it easily. But you have to rely on something which can work over the wire, right? Which I create an app once, which all the like 10 million, 20 million merchants can download and start accepting the payment. That is a kind of solution we have been looking for a while. And luckily, in the last 2 years, all the networks have come together and come up with this SoftPoS as a new technology. And they're providing good support around it, right? In terms of security, in terms of certification, in terms of making sure we can build it faster and all. So there is a good intent, and there is support from the ecosystem to make this possible, right? And by looking at this, it makes sense for us to give this kind of product in the market. And for merchants also, it's become a very unified experience, right? Today we have a bunch of customers who have a stores in the offline world and who also sell online, right? So they can collect both. They can have digital payments at both the places, right? Be it offline, be it online, and they can see all of the revenue data on a single place, right? So that is the advantage we are bringing to the merchants that we want to work with. In terms of technology, I think we can enable more, right? As I said, merchants can have loyalty solution, merchants can have BNPL solution. Tomorrow, wallets are also being interoperable with UPI, right? So you can also use wallet payments whenever you walk in a store. So these kind of things are not possible when you go to the traditional hardware support that is predominant in the market today. Right, so that is one. Second is, yes, see, we are not tying it to the mobile device. Mobile is the first device through which we can deliver this technology. Tomorrow, it can be part of any tablet. It can be part of any kind of transit system, right? Suppose you have a card, you can either use to withdraw money from ATM, or you can also use it to say, ride a metro, right? For that, these guys don't have to spend a lot in building the acquiring infrastructure, right? Because acquiring is now cheaper. You just install an app in any kind of device which has an Android operating system, and it can start accepting your cards, right? Prepaid cards, debit cards, right? So the use case is beyond payments also, right? This is what I want to stress on today, right? You can use it in transit. If there is any temporary event happening, right, then you can accept card then and there. Or if you are running a large retail store, right, you can have checkout option on the floor itself, right? You can avoid queues completely. And in pandemic-like situation, no one likes standing queue, right? That again increases the risk, right? So you can have 10 checkout points, 20 checkout points in large store, right? Say, or take example, restaurant, right? Instead of like everyone waiting for a card machine, you can simply have a checkout besides your table. So a lot of new kind of use cases, new kind of behaviors can come with the market. The best part is during this pandemic and UPI, right? Both the customer and merchant ecosystem are comfortable using smartphone as a payment tool, right? It was not prevalent before pandemic, right? People were using smartphone, but there was hesitancy. This pandemic has made everyone very comfortable with the smartphone using as a during the payment process, right? And that is something we'll back on top of it, right? With the SoftPoS, we're not going to change the behavior. We're going to tell them you can use the same smartphone, right, to go in an offline store and make the payment, right? That's why this is the right time to attack this kind of problem, and we can totally scale the acquiring infrastructure in the market up to 10x of what we have today.
Okay, brilliant. And I remember in I think 2015 odd when I think UPI was coming in, we were also part of the cohort which was trying to figure out what innovation we can do. And I remember presenting something. I mean, my team did something on taxi use case, right, long back. But of course, with time, so many of those use cases came into the market, and we are all still figuring out what more UPI can do. So maybe, Dilip, I had two questions from your side. One is to figure out what you think are the new use cases which can be built on top of that SoftPoS, because I think visualization and communication is very, very essential. I still believe that the kind of decks in those days we are seeing from NPCI side, and all of us were actually looking at what we can build. I think that was a big accelerate for us. Otherwise, we would not have imagined some of those. So that is one question, what are the new use cases which can come up? And second is how will it help also this whole framework on inclusion side, because Jandan had card but nowhere to go, right? And with AEPS you could provide that framework with just a thumb. Now with this framework coming on, how the inclusion side will be dramatically changing, including obviously the credit, which always we think about.
So Samir, before we look at what are the possibilities, I think we still have to go back to basics, right? I think there could be many players who are offering the SoftPoS, but unless you truly leverage the software, I think if the effort of the acquiring entity, acquiring bank or a fintech is to just replace that hardware box with a SoftPoS, just migrating the same functionality what you had on the POS machine on the smartphone, I think it will defeat the purpose, right? So first, I think it has to provide a really great merchant experience, and let me explain this what I'm thinking about it. The way I look at it, the merchant, right? While now you get it back to the smartphone, right? You are trying to give a B2B experience, right? But can you give it by B2C way, right? Can you actually give a very, very simplified payment, whether it's onboarding, whether it's transaction, a zero touch experience to the merchant first, right? So that he is so comfortable, he gets so used to it, right? In terms of using that SoftPoS in a very seamless manner, right? Not by doing 10 clicks and first select the transaction, do this, do that. This is, he's using the device for the payments. Why he has to select so many things, right? So can you really make a zero touch experience for the merchant? I think this is the first basic expectation which I would like to have it, not replicating the current world payment, but really redesign this whole thing for the next gen payments, which is very simplified. Similarly, India is a very diverse country, right? The multilingual approach, the voice enabled approach. We can't go back just with one approach back. If you want to look at the scale which Sanjeev and Akash both have been talking about, you need to create a variety of wide experience, because a merchant is a unique customer, right? And he might have different needs. So unless we are able to create that level of experience, I don't think the scale up is going to happen. So I think there is a lot of effort is required to build that experience back for the merchant. The second is, this SoftPoS actually has to enable merchant to drive the digital, right? Today, what happens is, and I have seen this number of times, that the merchant does not really play the role in the digital payment, right? The digital payment, not only in India but the worldwide, is predominantly driven by the customers, right? And this is where you spoke about, and Sanjeev was talking about, the customer can pay with the card, customer can pay with the smart app, right? So today customer has both the options right now, but the question is how merchant can influence the migration from cash to digital. I think this is where SoftPoS will have to play a big role in terms of driving their experience to drive more digital, right? Otherwise, what is the difference between this POS machine, which was erstwhile POS machine, and a smart POS by, just by adding 2 more or 3 more payment experiences, wallet and other things, the usage is not going to scale up. I think the objective is scale up the acceptance and scale up the usage, right? So how does this software actually drives up the usage is what I think all the technology players like Akash and other players will have to start putting their mind. The third thing which actually strikes to my mind, that there is one sector which is really not penetrated, and which is like a mobility sector. We keep talking about it. While the metros are coming up and metros will drive the usage, and I was talking about it before, we have 30 million, 40 million now NCMC cards now, which now recently a regulator has permitted to do offline retail transaction as well now not only the transit but also the retail and otherwise. So the question is now how this SoftPoS can play a role in the mobility sector, right? Because this is predominantly the cash driven sector throughout the country more unorganized and more. And now with the NCMC, which is actually solving the supply, the demand side problems by getting the offline transaction low, very high, very efficient, high speed, low cost. The card, the keychains. We have recently launched Rupee on the go keychains and those kind of things. The bracelets, the watch. We have launched variety of the rings. What the younger generation may like. Now the question is, can SoftPoS actually change the because it's software driven, can it actually take care of the mobility as a sector? And please understand that what you supply at the retail POS will not work at the mobility, right? Their requirements are completely different, right? So is there a way that because it's a software driven, can it be customized to take care of some fare computation, some typical requirements of the mobility merchant, which is an auto driver or a taxi driver or a train or buses, those kind of things? Is it possible to adopt that? Because that's a huge opportunity. In my assessment, at least 10 million such points exist today, which do not accept digital payments, right? So I think the use cases, summarizing your point, Samir, that unless it truly lives up to the software-driven approach, right? I don't think the SoftPoS will just remain as a replacement of the physical POS, right? But if it truly has to revolutionize the payments, it has to be truly software-driven approach, and which should be visible in merchant experience, the different sectors which are actually untapped. It should not compete with the existing payment mode, but it should create its own space to scale up the volume, to scale up the acceptance, and create a universal supply solution in the assisted mode payments.
So I think this is great. This is great. In fact, you talk about experiences. I think this is critical because suddenly the devices will move away from maybe some bit of a regular, proper regular shops actually to the Kelawalas of the world, right? Now, Kelawala guy would not know how to go about doing anything more than the basics, right? And we really can't give him the experience. I remember one time I went to a shop, the person was not trained. They couldn't charge for some time, and then they gave it to me. Can you try? I just couldn't figure out which one to click, and finally I had to give cash and left, right. So it was so difficult. I'm not talking about too far back, maybe few years back, only 3 years back. Even today, I think the POS devices will be difficult. You need to get the expert. यहाँ पे EMI दबाओ तो EMI वाला option दिखता है, right? It's very difficult. It's not really intuitive, right? Maybe the other thing which I was just thinking that now the Kelawala, who's not getting loan because his transactions are not digitized, will be now on the railroad. So merchant cash advance will move to the Kelawala ke liye advance as well, right? Which is not visible. So I think wherever payments go, lending goes after that. I think the market should dramatically change from the credit side, right? Otherwise, they will remain credit invisible as well. Perfect. So Sanjeev, I think you have a view on all sides, right? So maybe what are the benefits which will accrue to the merchants, because now you have a possibility of credit as well along with payments. And what are the challenges, right? Technically SoftPoS has arrived, but has not made any noise out there. It's like silently it exists, and it is not taking a blast. UPI existed for some time and just took a blast with Demon, right? How do you ensure that it also explodes in the right direction, not explodes in the wrong direction, right direction, and scales up and helps the markets? Your thoughts on that?
It's very difficult to say at what point it really becomes crosses what we call the critical mass. Okay. Yeah, SoftPoS has been around. A lot of people keep coming out with some stuff on SoftPoS. My sense is there is, like, let's say, a right time. I don't know whether the right time is today or the right time is tomorrow, but fact is, it's about time that we really can go to market with this. And we have two solutions, right? So if you have only one solution, which is NFC, you will still have constraints. Every smartphone device that the shopkeeper may have and the shop boys may have will not be NFC enabled. Apart from that, the dongle is pretty cheap. So it exists now, Samir. And fact is, today, what has happened over the last 3-4 years with the mushrooming of UPI and QR is the shopkeeper, and you need not call it shop, right? This could actually be your thelawala. It could actually be just your very, very small neighborhood tea shop, pan wala jo aap bol rahe the, all of those categories, very small vegetable vendor. all of them have now become very comfortable accepting digital payments. This is what didn't exist. Many of these places you go to and you talk to the merchant, he's saying, yeah, I'm okay dealing in cash. Right? This is like really deep in the country. Many of them now are comfortable dealing with digital payments because that's the first part. You want the digital divide and all of that stuff that we talk about, India versus Bharat, all of those divides you put together. I think that has been crossed. Okay. Then it's only, and does this solution, let me not call it device, does this solution meet the 3-4 requirements, what I said, or the acid test for acquiring a solution, let me not call it device again, solution, it does. After that, Samir, the market is intelligent enough, wise enough to accept or reject. Okay. Our idea as banks, our idea is obviously Dilip on the network side, Cashfree as a partner, is to take solutions to market, and obviously there'll be learnings. Just because the first one doesn't work doesn't mean that you give up. You just work out what needs to be changed. That's based on market feedback. You adapt, you revise, you then go back, and because the potential is very large. See, it's a country which is huge. You're crossing the $2,000 per capita. Again, the starting context that I put, and there is a very, very close correlation, as I'm saying, between acquiring as in payments to GDP back to payments. That loop, all of these things we know. Rest, as I'm saying, market will always tell you the truth.
Thank you. This is good. This is good. And for everyone else, the white paper is available for download. You can pick it up and sort of go through it. And of course, you want to reach to Cashfree team as well as my team for some discussion, we can always have it. So maybe, and also please keep posting your questions. This is our last formal question, and then last 15 minutes we will spend on your questions coming across. So I'm just assimilating the set of questions coming from your side, and I'll ask in the end, right? But Akash, maybe you want to talk a bit about what this, I mean, there's very little information available on SoftPoS generally in market. Some of the queries which are coming back to me in this chatter is actually about something else. I mean, maybe we are not, the market is not really informed about what SoftPoS is. So maybe you want to talk about what else the content in the white paper and why people should pick up, and some details about that before we go ahead. Yeah.
Sure, Samir, I'll come to that. I think before I just like to add a few points what Dilip and Sanjeev mentioned, right? See, the way to increase the adoption in the market is go after use cases where we already have a demand, where customers want to pay using card, but we don't have an acceptance infrastructure. Right? Those are the markets where the current POS hardware couldn't make a bigger dent. Right? Those are the markets where software should go and find a success instead of directly competing. Right? It's the example of say paying to a delivery agent, right, or paying to a taxi driver, or any kind of say if you are riding a bus at the bus stand. In these cases, POS is like non-existent, right? Literally non-existent, because such kind of hardware is not possible to operate in this. It's not interoperable, right? It's not portable, right? So those are the use cases I think this technology will go after first, and we definitely have worked on the like user experience, merchant experience. It has to be as easy as again paying cash, right? I mean that's the way to fight with that cash. To make it anything complicated than that, then people would be discouraged to use it. Just to add the context, I think there are many use cases where POS hardware is facing hard time because of the nature of the technology, right? Not because there is no need or ask. Because nature of technology is acting as a limiting factor. In those areas, I think we also plan to go first and see how we can keep on increasing the coverage from there, right? And that will also make us learn a lot about how to build a great technology, how to build a great experience in the market. Right? Coming to the white paper is more about introducing this technology. Right? We want to take users through the evolution of POS, like how POS looked at back at 1980, how POS looks at 1990, and how POS the entire time looks today. Right? We'll also touch base on what capabilities do they bring for the merchant, right? More than payments, right? They can work on loyalty, they can work on POS lending, they can work on EMI solution, they can work on like getting cash advances, overdraft from the bank or whatever partner they work with. So POS is really evolved, and we also are touching base in the future how POS is supposed to look like, right? I mean, there is a big requirement of cash in, cash out kind of system, we should be present there. And then what Dilip mentioned, right? There is a need a lot of valued services at a POS terminals, right? Things like BPS. I should be able to walk into any store and pay my water bill, right? If I don't have right UPI apps with me. So a lot of kind of convenience product could be sold through this device. So those are the areas we have touched base upon. We have also touched base upon what are the regulatory support we have already around it, and what are the regulatory support we could have to make it a bigger success, right? That is the second. Third is more on the consumer behavior, right? How ready the consumers of India are there to use this technology, right? How ready the merchant base is there in India to use this technology. See, these are the major aspects of the white paper. It's a very, like good read. It's very informative. We also touch base upon the, the circulation of cards we have, circulation of POS machines we have, right? How did we see the delta of card usage since pandemic? Right? So we have touched base upon a lot of good data points. And that can tell people how the entire payment ecosystem is growing in the market and how this technology can act as accelerator to grow digital payment acceptance further, right? How can it, reduce cash circulation or cash usage in the market, once we make it popular?
But one interesting question which has come is that if this comes up, will we have new instruments coming up, right? UPI was a new instrument, right? Will we have new instrument if this comes up? I know it looks awkward to, but yeah, maybe it may happen, right? So any thoughts on, is there a possibility of new sort of products coming up to cater to this availability of this product, right?
See, from my side, I think there is a big possibility. Like today, there is limitation in terms of adding new things the hardware easily, right? Because the system is also not uniform, right? You have different devices being used by different merchants. Best part of software, it will be standard solution used by all the merchants using SoftPoS, right? So you can update it, on the fly. You can update it from the backend, from the cloud. It's easy for you to distribute new, payment modes in the market through this technology, right? And you can also have different kind of authentication there. Today on a POS machine, you can only have PIN authentication. Right? Tomorrow with this kind of thing, you can have different kind of, you can have biometric authentication possible to be built around it, right? Which is not possible in the current setup, right? Even if you look at technology like e-rupee, right? E-rupee it become easier for people to get it redeemed if merchants have the SoftPoS like solution, right? I mean, merchants don't have to invest in additional hardware to accept something like e-rupee. So it opens a lot of possibilities. I think whatever use cases we have been, facing hard time to fix it, SoftPoS can give solution to most of them. I'm not saying 100%, I think, but we'll have, very large coverage of whatever the demands of consumer merchants are in the market that can be catered well with this technology.
And
you
okay,
share your opinion on it.
Yeah, sorry, I missed you, Akash.
I'm saying maybe Dilip and Sanjeev can share their opinion.
Yeah, that will be good. I think this will be useful. Dilip and
So, I think the opportunities are infinite, but I think the India will continue to work at least for next 10 years, right? Both in the self-service mode and assisted mode, right? So that's the way I think about the country. So most of the payment modes will coexist in the self-service as well as assisted model. So while the self-service is fairly software driven, right? In that sense, fairly moved on to the app or a NFC card or the new variants which we are trying, RuPay on the go devices, keychains, and those kind of things. I think the SoftPoS provides the opportunity for the assisted mode revolution, right? The assisted mode revolution, and hopefully I believe that it can also bring in a lot of new use cases in the market. E-rupee is one thing which we spoke about, and I think with the offline technology, right? Today the network connectivity, right, of 4G availability back throughout the country is not possible at this stage. And when we look at the offline transaction, which are really high value, today we have about 75% of the total country's cash transactions are below 100 rupees, right? That's how economic services. So, I think our offline capability of the SoftPoS can actually change the customer experience for the small ticket transactions using NCMC. So I think the opportunities are infinite. Whether it changes the game or not, again, it depends on the ecosystem of banks and fintechs. How do they position? How do they think through? How do they, they cannot think through as a replacement. They cannot think through as a replacement of existing mode, but a new innovation or evolution of the whole, the digital payment or payment of a service to the merchant ecosystem and the relevant use cases implementation.
Yeah, and Sanjeev, your thoughts as well.
A couple of thoughts, right? So, question is in terms of will it lead to new products coming in? My sense is, see, payment, frankly, is a pretty simple set of products, right? You have card, form factor actually. So long back, we used to take out money from a wallet that was replaced to some extent by plastic, that has been replaced or added in many ways with the UPI, which is finally connecting to your bank account. So it's another form of, let's say, a debit card. It's a formless debit card. There's BNPL now available in the market. All I'm saying is it may not take off because of SoftPoS. It may take off as digital payments get deepened in the country. That's the context I would look at it. Does this form factor lend itself more to one form of issuing instrument, UPI, card, BNPL? I don't think so. In that sense, it's a reasonably, what I would say is a secular solution out there. It really is a merchant-driven solution. What will it lead to on the other side? Very difficult for me to predict, Samir, but at least I don't see a trend which I can say very obviously, yeah, this is what it leads to. Second point, again, I just want to emphasize that as we have seen over the last 3-4 years, right? When UPI has come in, it is not like cards growth has gone down because people keep asking, is it replacing? I'm actually seeing cards also grow, maybe at a lower pace than 5 years back, but then the market has also become deeper. Similarly, on the acquiring side, I am not seeing this replace your normal terminal. This will lead to further deepening. On the margin, there may be some merchant who will not take the normal device, but this device. But really, the point is all of these on the issuing side or on the acquiring side are leading to deepening of payments in the country. My sense is that's a secular trend we will continue to see. And that, I think, is reasonably safe to say. Rest, as I said, again, earlier in the discussion, market will tell us if this is the final solution that will be taking off like a rocket, or we need to modify certain things, which obviously we'll have our eyes and ears open for. Yeah, that's pretty much, yes, I mean, my take on it.
Thank you. Thank you. I think there are two questions coming up. One is interesting, saying that what will happen to micro ATMs post SoftPoS coming in? And that is one. And then somebody is asking that, can we have APS also integrated on that device so that you don't end up on the, let's say if you go to village and somebody wants to put thumb, you have to plug in one dongle, then you have to another dongle. So I think that's a thought process coming from that. So innovation already on the table, right? Akash, you want to take it up?
All these are great ideas, right? I'm sure, like, at least we're able to trigger such kind of thought. I mean, at the end of the day, this app should be able to do just more than payments, right? Tomorrow, if you go into a apparel store and requesting for refund for your return product, right? So today they just give you credit or they try to give you cash. But tomorrow with this kind of solution, they can also send money to your bank account from the counter itself, right? Or take example, when you cancel a flight ticket at an airport, right? They try to give you cash in return. So such use cases can also be handled through POS in future. And obviously things like APS and other things could be integrated as Dilip mentioned, BVPS can also be part of it, right? So bunch of things could be done because it's easy to scale it. Just that we have to keep on training the merchant, right? Just adding feature technology won't help. We have to train the merchant. We have to tell them this is secure. We also have to make customers aware of it. There will be an entire process to make anything successful. And that will also be part of this journey, right? So on the day one, we'll try to go after simpler solution, which is making the life easier. And then we can keep on adding more value so that it becomes more and more attractive. And that will definitely help us deepen the market. But to start with, there is already a big demand where POS hardware are not able to help merchants or help customers. Those use cases should be handled first. And then definitely we can go APS, BPS. And then, because on the day one, you don't want to compete with all the solutions in the market, right? That will just confuse people. So there is a possibility, but I think we should take baby steps and reach there at the right time.
Okay. And another question which is coming from a cash perspective, right? Once this happens, would we have a option? I mean, since everybody will walk around with literally a POS machine on their hand, would cash at POS or SoftPoS be an option? Anybody can take it, maybe Dilip or anybody can want to take it.
No, definitely. I think the point is very valid, and I actually when let's assume that everybody is driving the POS with them, right? It creates an infinite opportunities. It creates a very simple modes of payments. Just for example, I'm on a payment site on my phone, and instead of adding up the UPI pin, I just tap my card on my own phone, right? It makes it so simple. It makes it so simple to get there. Obviously, it might take some more time to get there, but I think the SoftPoS has the ability to drive the experience both on a merchant side and consumer side both, right? Obviously, it has to evolve. It has to see that future. But and once the experience is changed, right? I think that driving the different variety of use cases may not be that difficult in my assessment, because finally it's all software driven in that sense.
No, I agree. I think when delivery guys come to houses, or maybe this urban company guys come, I think they carrying their own devices will be very, very powerful, right? Otherwise, very difficult. They have to depend on the other side. So I think this kind of business will change. But with this, I think as we move towards the closure of the session, my request to each one of you, please download the documents available. And maybe last comments, few comments from each one of you. Dilip, starting with you, a last comment before we conclude.
We are very excited with this SoftPoS evolution. We have tied up with many partners in the market, and now that there's a huge emphasis back on a tap and go and NCMC card, and with the recent enablement by RBI on that less than 200 offline transactions, I think this is a great enabler. I think the SoftPoS is a great enabler to drive large-scale digitization in the country, and I hope that we are able to deliver the use cases, the localization, the merchant and customer experience in truly software way, and just not by replacing the existing payment mode. So we are very bullish at NPCI, and I think you will see us driving the NCMC RuPay in a big way for a better adoption of contactless payments, better adoption of small ticket payments in the large citizen scale volume level.
Thank you. And last comments from your side, Sanjeev.
Again, as I said earlier, quite an interesting phase after what we've seen over the last 4 or 5 years, which is really significant deepening of digital payments in the country. From here onwards, next 5 to 7 years, my sense is we will just continue to see this trend. And once you have a certain, the size of the digital payments in the country is pretty significant. On this, if you add a compounding of 30-40%, these are very, very significant numbers we are talking about. What it does for all of us as consumers, what it does for the merchant, what it does actually for the country as a whole in terms of economy, GDP, is very, very significant contribution. I think that's the phase we are in. Very excited to look at SoftPoS as another, let me put it this way, another answer to the suite of what we need to solve for in the country. And yeah, so quite bullish, quite positive, and actually in many ways quite positive about looking forward to what the response of the market is on this.
I think the market would react very positively. I'm a small merchant and I only have a gateway and I can't take it from anything else. One time somebody came across and gave me cash and got irritated. I think that entry is still not accounted for properly. It's very difficult, right? So totally with you. And Akash, last one pointer from your side before we close.
See, we as a country, right, for last 5 to 7 years, we have been doing a very great job in building the infrastructure. And I see this SoftPoS also one of the step towards building a payment infrastructure, growing the payment infrastructure. That also aligns with a social goal. And once we have country well fed with the infrastructure, then next sort of innovation could be built on top of it, right? So country cannot just take a leap of faith just like this. This is a very important stepping stone. That's how we see it. But obviously there's a great business to be made, but also we'll achieve a larger social goal if we make it really successful. And timing is also right? People are people are very accepting of new ideas. Merchants are also willing to explore new things. The market is also very receptive to these kind of innovation. And once we try it out, then obviously by using the merchant feedback, the customer feedback, we can build a lot of technologies on top of it and make life easier further for customers and market and make digital payment more and more successful, right? I mean, that will help you create a lot of layer of services on top of it. But this is the starting point to, of any economy of the digitization, right? Once cash is digitized, then you can do lending, insurance, wealth, whatever you want to do on top of it. But this is the starting point. And that can have a very big trickle effect if it becomes successful.
Thank you, and thanks everyone from the audience side who joined in and answered the questions. And of course, I know that many of them have downloaded as well. And thanks Dilip, Sanjeev, and Akash for your insights. Thank you. This is a fabulous learning for me, and मुझे कुछ करना नहीं पड़ा, सुन के सीख लिया मैंने. Thank you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
See you, Akash. Thanks everybody.
Bye.